AMN DriveTime is sponsored by Aishin, your trusted and reliable source for aftermarket automotive components and technology. Visit AishinAftermarket.com for more information.
Chris, welcome to AMN DriveTime, sponsored by our good friends at Aishin.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate the opportunity and honored to be here.
So we're calling this sort of AMN DriveTime on the road. You and I are sitting in Chicago by O'Hare at the Lowe's Hotel for the Vision Conference, which starts this evening with a reception. And we're glad you could make some time while you're here.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. We're excited to be one of the sponsors for the Vision Conference. So it's a great conference every year. There's a great list of attendees. We're excited about it.
So Chris, N.A. Williams, famous company. Walk us through your aftermarket career, beginning where and when you started.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll go over a little bit of the company history later, but how I started, it was kind of a baptism by fire, if you will, in the automotive aftermarket. So while I was in school at the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia, I worked at a parts store off and on. And the baptism by fire story started day one. I walked in, the manager recognizing I was a college kid and didn't know anything. He said, "Look, we're going to give you, 2 to 3 weeks to kind of learn the ropes here before we put you on the counter and really helping customers. So for right now, you kind of sweep up, move inventory around, dust the shelves. In 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get you on the counter really learning this." And I said, great. So I had a great first day, go home, come back the next day for day two. The store manager says, change the plans. We had a couple people calling sick, you're on the counter today. And I said, okay. And he said, really, there are a couple things to know. Just take care of the customer. I'm always here for you. But he said, remember this is very important. He goes, there are new computer systems in the store. And he said, I don't trust them. So when you look up a part for a customer and it says we have the inventory, you make sure to go back and check the shelf. Physically put your hand on that part. And he goes, you understand? I said, yes, sir. He goes, that's what you've got to remember. So it was a busy day. It was fun. We were helping customers. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing the best I could. And then probably just after lunch, I did get a call from a customer over the phone. He said, hey, do you have an alternator for an 87 Mercury Topaz, which is a bad car, by the way. I drove one for a couple of years, but looked up in the computer. We got inventory. We got it. Come on in. He goes, good. I'll be there in a couple hours to pick it up. Had some customers in front of me on the counter, so I immediately hung up the phone, started working with him, kind of forgot about it. Anyway, about 2 or 3 hours later, I'm in the back putting inventory up and moving some merchandise. The manager walks back and says, hey, Chris, did you tell a customer that's standing right outside here that we had a alternator for an 87 Mercury Topaz? And I said, yes, I did. And he said, and the computer said we had inventory. And I said, yes, sir, I did. And he said, and you checked the shelf? Well, no, sir, I did not. He goes, well, I did. And he goes, and we do not have that part on the shelf. And he said, and so what you're going to do right now is you're going to go find that part. You got to go call stores and find it. Go pick up that part, bring it back to the customer, and then we'll have a discussion at the end of the day about this. Okay, so went and called stores. I found the part. Drove it back. The customer was sitting in the store. He needed a ride home, so I had to give him a ride home. And on the ride home, he said, hey, thanks for going to the extra mile to get this part for me. And I said, no, it's my fault. I didn't check the shelf. This would have happened a lot faster. And I said, this is my second and probably last day on the job, as I'm probably going to get fired right when I get back. So I dropped him off, got back in, and the manager said, hey, Chris, what's the theme of the day? I said, theme of the day? He goes, yes, what's the theme of the day? And I said, check the shelf. He goes, check the shelf. And that was a lasting memory. I mean, whenever I go on a business trip, I mean, I'm double checking the socks and underwear and everything like 10 times because I always just, I want to check the shelf and remember it. But that was my baptism by fire story in the aftermarket.
So how did you get from checking the shelf to being the CEO of N.A. Williams?
Well,
there must have been something happened between the third day, you didn't become CEO of N.A. Williams, did you?
So after college, I started with the family business out of Atlanta, was there for a few months, and then I moved to, had the opportunity to move to Raleigh, North Carolina, and call on CarQuest. Their headquarters They were headquartered, General Parts, CarQuest was
Sure.
headquartered in Raleigh at the time.
Sure.
They had a big DC out of Raleigh and probably 150 stores. And so my job as the young territory manager was to ensure that our products were in those stores, to train the store associates on our products, to do pull-through activities at the shop level. And I was there for about 3 years in Raleigh, and I loved it. I had a great time. I really learned how the traditional market operated, how they service the technicians, how they support the technicians. So it was a lot of fun. They had some fun with me as well, being the young guy. I worked with some great people at CarQuest, their outside sales team, and a lot of the factory sales people like the Standard Motor Products guys. So quick funny story, one of them named R.L. Wilder, who is one of the territory reps for Standard, he called me one day after about 6 months in Raleigh, and he said, hey, we've got, this is a great opportunity for you. We've got a job appreciation show next week on the coast of North Carolina for one of the big independently owned jobber groups. And so I want you to come with me, and we're going to set up, we cook barbecue, it's a big deal, have shops come in. And he goes, it's a big deal. Your hotel's covered, your dinner and breakfast are covered. It's really an extravagant event. So I'll pick you up next Wednesday at about 3 o'clock. And I said, great. He picked me up, we go down there. We go set up at the store the night before, and he's got this big cooker that can cook hundreds of barbecue chicken. It's great. I mean, but you know, now it's about 9 o'clock at night, we're at the store. And I said, RL, where's a great hotel? Where's the hotel we're staying in? And he goes, oh, it's my pickup truck. We're staying in my pickup truck tonight. And I said, oh, and he goes, Chris, we got to stay up all night. We got to watch these chickens. We've got to monitor this grill. One of us has got to sleep. One of us watches chicken. We'll rotate. And I said, okay, so there's no hotel. And he goes, well, I told you get a free place to stay. So this is it. I go, okay, I got you. About that time, RL pulled out a small bottle of Pop-Off vodka and orange juice and said, it's going to be a long night. Would you like to have some? And I said, yeah, I guess so. That'd be great. And I said, hey, what's for dinner? And he said, 2 Advil. And I said, what's for breakfast? And he said, 2 more Advil. I realized I'd been had, and there was no extravagant event. But again, we had about 150 techs come the next day. We did need the Advil. We had a good time. We did a great celebration for the store owner there. But I love that. And then after 3 years in Raleigh, I had the opportunity to move to Memphis, Tennessee. And we have an office there and to service the AutoZone account. And I had a fantastic mentor and leader in that office. A guy named Charles Whitey McLean. His nickname was Whitey. And he was with us for about 15 years. And he led our office, and he was the guy that taught me the value of hard work. He always said, look, if you're not fixing a problem and you're not offering solutions, you better be creating opportunities. So if you're not creating opportunities, you need to be looking for issues to fix. So don't stay stagnant, move. Help the customer, help the supplier. And so it was a great opportunity. And I was there for 5 years. Met my wife during that period, and then we had the opportunity to move back to Atlanta. In the early 2000s, my dad at that point was starting to slow down, near retirement age. And Roger McCullum, my predecessor, is a great guy, had been promoted to our president and CEO, and he needed some help in Atlanta. So I have 2 other brothers that were in the business, both have since retired. But 2 of us moved back to Atlanta at that point, and my oldest brother was already in Atlanta, so we worked on the product management side to help support our folks in the field.
So that's a great beginning to your career, right? Between a little bit in Atlanta, then you went to Raleigh, then you went to Memphis, then you came back. That was probably, I don't know, how many years is that all in?
About 8 years, and it gave me a good understanding of how the traditional business operated.
Sure.
And how the retail business operated. So.
And what year did Roger become president then?
1997, 98.
Okay.
And became our CEO shortly after.
Yeah.
And great guy. I owe a lot to him.
So you had a 25-year run at that then, Roger. Right?
Yeah.
Sure.
He did a great job. He really helped take our company to the next level. We owe him a lot. And he's doing the same thing with the University Aftermarket Association Board. So he's doing a great job.
So N.A. Williams, you're fourth generation, which is pretty darn rare. I'm third generation, and that's rare. Fourth generation, that's the rarest of rare air, right? Talk about your growth over the years, over time, and then what are new initiatives, right now in 2025?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think I'd have to start off by saying kind of the core tenets or the culture of our company that I was fortunate enough to walk into. So there's a great story that was very impactful early in my career. Before I went to Raleigh, when I was in Atlanta for a few months, just out of college, we had an associate named Randy Hall, who was a kind of a junior territory manager in Atlanta. Randy was, if there was any heavy lifting, if there was any jobber changeovers, if there was any inventories, Randy was the guy. He was the best. And so I worked with him and learned the value of hard work working with him every day. And after about 6 to 8 weeks of working with Randy, he told me a story, and he just pulled me aside after work one day and he said, "Hey, I owe your family, I owe your dad and the family and the company a debt of gratitude." And I said, "Oh, for what?" And he said, "Well, I had been with the company for about 5 or 6 years, and then I was diagnosed with lung cancer, and terminal. It was bad. And I was out of work for a year and a half. And I just came back about 3 months ago." And he said, "But your dad told me and told my wife and family, don't worry about it. You're always going to get a paycheck. You just get well." And he took care of, when I was well enough to get out of the house, he said, "Y'all need to go on vacation. You need to get out of your house." And he would pay for us to go on vacation. And he'd go, just little things like that. And, when I was out for a year and a half, he always had to bring people in to cover for me, which was an added expense. So, he said, I'm indebted, of course, and I didn't know that story. I said, "Well, thank you for sharing that, Randy." At the time, I was still living at home with Mom and Dad, and I asked my dad about it that night. I said, "Dad, Randy told me this great story about how you took care of him during, when he was recovering from cancer." He said, "Yeah." And he said, "He was out of work for a year and a half." And he goes, "Yeah." And he said, you paid for him to go on vacation?" "Yeah." And he said, and you incurred expenses to bring other people in while he was recovering." He said, "Yeah, what's your question? Get to the point. What are you saying?" I said, "Well, that was really thoughtful and generous of you to do that." And I'll never forget, he just looked at me and said, "Well, if the shoe was on the other foot, isn't that how you would want to be treated?"
Right.
And no further explanation needed.
Sure.
The kind of the golden rule principle, treat others as you would want to be treated. And we work with so many great companies in this industry that have that philosophy. We've adopted that philosophy. So a byproduct of that is that we're fortunate to attract and retain great people.
Yep.
And that's 99% of it. Having the best people, the absolute best people, and growing with them, retaining them, and helping them fulfill their goals. 1% or less is the vision of leadership. Stay out of the way and let them do their job. We have, with those teams and those great people, we've made a lot of investments, as a lot of companies have, in data excellence. So whether it's at a major account in a major territory, in addition to a account leader, account team, customer service team, we always have a data leader there as well. And they go through Delta & Associates training, which is great training for all of our analysts. And then we were fortunate enough about 3 years ago to hire a VP of Category Management, Olivia Droney Newton, who leads this team, and she has really helped take this analyst team to the next level to help create solutions and opportunities for our customers. So think of when suppliers are in line reviews, we're helping with that process with the data. She also, along with Chris Riley, who's one of my nephews, is managing our call center in Atlanta called Data Link Services. It's something we're pretty proud of. Think of kind of real-time data in the field. We could do survey work at the shop level, at the store level, to find out, why are you buying a certain product? Why are you buying it as a private label brand versus a brand? Do you go to the OE dealer? What do you do? So we can generate a lot of activity or information for our suppliers and customers that can help them make better decisions. So going from the 8 southeastern states, we've been fortunate enough to grow. Starting in the late 1990s, early 2000s, when our industry started to consolidate a bit, we were fortunate we had some good relationships with peer agencies in other markets that if they did not have a good succession plan or a child that wanted to take over the business, we were viewed as a good succession plan for them. So we went on kind of that journey over the last 20, 25 years to acquire some companies. And the owner stays with us, which is a great thing. A lot of companies we bought 25 years ago, the owner's still with us, so that's important. But we've also greenfielded in some areas. So today we cover 40 plus states in Latin America with 130 associates.
Wow. And how does 25 feel and look at the moment?
I feel good about it. You know, look, tariffs are certainly create choppiness, uncertainty, and you know, that's there. But the fundamentals of our industry are really strong. And when you get past these tariffs, which I know that are not easy to get past, the average car is going to be more expensive, used and new. People, by necessity, will prefer and by necessity need to hold onto their vehicles and repair them. That bodes very well for the aftermarket. You know, it is an inflation, cost-conscious environment. And so the challenge is for everybody to innovate and to provide value for the customers and for the technician. And we're bullish. I mean, you know, this is a phenomenal industry, and you know, there are a lot of great people in this industry, and the consumers want this industry. I mean, just if you ask any consumer without having any knowledge of the automotive aftermarket, would you like a choice of where you'd want to get your car serviced if it was a trusted local service provider close by at economical price? They'd clearly choose that. So we do feel like that's going to win the day overall.
So as a very prominent manufacturer reps business, maybe the most prominent in the business.
I doubt that.
Talk to us about the value of brands in the aftermarket. What companies need to do to keep their brands relevant, engaging, and profitable, and in a good spot moving forward? Because brands can come and brands can go. You and I have witnessed in our career, prominent brands from 1990 have evaporated, new brands have come in. I'd just be curious about your thoughts on brands and how they remain strong.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. You have to adapt. And it's a lot of blocking and tackling. I mean, the obvious choice is market your brand. Let's make sure that your brand is in front of the consumer, however you market it. That's critical, but there's so many more facets that go into that. Do you have the right data? Do you have, are you best in class in new applications if you're a hard part? Is your pricing right? Are you helping a customer with category management and lifecycle, market intelligence on what's going on? So I think a brand encompasses all of those facets. If you're best in class in working with the customer, the store, the technician to train to make sure they have all of the best products, the new applications, all of the information and the technology to be able to utilize that product, that goes hand in hand with the marketing of the brand. And I think brands are in a great spot. I really do. I think that there are so many great private brands out there today, and you can play a key role in that too. But if you have your own brand, you know, make sure that you are best in class and keeping up with the industry, keeping up with the customer, and make it easier for the customer, make it easier for the technician or the DIY person to use your product.
You mentioned pricing. Do people get the pricing wrong? Is that common? Are they pricing it too high or too low, or is it all of the above?
I think in this inflationary world that we live in, we really have to be cognizant of keeping the price affordable for the customer.
Yep.
And the customer's tapped out.
Right.
And the inflation on parts is, I feel like there was very little inflation for many, many years prior
Right.
to COVID, and then it's been exponential ever since. So I do think that it is important to make sure that we're thinking of the technician and the end user customer, what they can afford to pay. If you're providing a great value, they'll pay for it. But you got to make sure that it's priced right and you've got all the bells and whistles in there.
So you've touched on it just a little bit, but maybe you could elaborate. Biggest challenges facing the aftermarket right now, / biggest opportunities right now. So when I say right now, 2025, 2026, it's almost too hard to look beyond kind of 12 to 24 months, but challenges, opportunities for the market in general.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of you've had some great panelists on here, and they've all mentioned right to repair. And I think the industry and the Auto Care Association has done a phenomenal job fighting the fight to make sure that the aftermarket is first and foremost. Again, I think from a common sense standpoint, the aftermarket thrives forever. But we have this little thing called Congress, the government, and to make sure that our voice is heard there so they can legislate appropriately so our industry can have access to the technology. So I think that's first and foremost number one. Lack of technicians. There are a lack of technicians, there are a lack of truck drivers, there are a lack of teachers, nurses. There are a lack of really important roles out there, and technicians' place in that role. We need to make sure that that is a great profession and is viewed as a great profession. So that's why I think it's great for what Babcock's does and what a lot of great companies by being on the University Aftermarket to support the scholarships to bring great people into this industry. I mean, this is a great industry. So, the technician shortage, the right to repair, those are a couple of challenges. The opportunities, are boundaryless. I mean, you go back to COVID. COVID was a phenomenal period for the aftermarket. Think of the Great Recession, the 2008 period. I think our industry got a lot of fanfare after that period from the lawyers, the investment bankers, the commercial real estate folks that really didn't think about the aftermarket. And that was the Great Recession was a very challenging time for everybody. Our industry did well.
You're right. It was kind of a flashpoint.
It was kind of a flashpoint, you're right. And I think that Wall Street or those people really recognize, hey, this industry is resilient, strong, stable, and one that is going to be here forever, and one that we can depend on.
Yes.
And so, again, consumers want choice. I think that will always be important. And I've got a new driver, a 16-year-old, and a 23-year-old, 20-year-old as well, but a 16-year-old. And I know that everybody says kids don't want to drive these days. And I will, everybody knows, these little things that you have in your hands, the iPhones, they take the attention away from the teenager from wanting to drive. And my 16-year-old probably did wait 30 days before he actually did go get his license after he turned 16. But once he got it, bye-bye, Dad. It's the freedom, it's the opportunity. I mean, the ability to be, the freedom to be able to get in that car and go, you can't replicate that.
Right.
And so I don't care, when you feel it, it's there. So it's job security, it's necessity, it's freedom, it's joy, it's a better life.
Yep.
So I feel great about mobility, I feel great about the aftermarket. There's always going to be challenges because it's a big market and people want a piece of it and they want to keep us out of it. But I think with the great work of our association and all these great companies in our industry, I think we've got a great future.
So that's kind of the aftermarket globally and the opportunities. I presume you feel the same way about N.A. Williams and what the next 24 months looks like for you guys.
If we could get better leadership at the top, I'd feel even better about it. And I'm kind of joking, kind of not joking. I think in our industry and all of our companies, if we can attract the best people, we're going to be fine. It's about getting the people. I really think it's about getting the right people. And I think about like the Yang group. There's so many. I mean, there are 1,000 strong in the young executive group. We've been fortunate enough to hire some great young people. I'm really bullish on our industry. This industry is going to be strong for a long time. I hope our company's strong for a long time. I know the industry will be. As long as we get great people, we'll be in good shape. So I think that really what it boils down to, Bill, is just getting talented people to come in our industry, continue to get that, and to get the recognition that our industry deserves as a really great industry to serve.
So it's tradition, Chris, on AMN Drive Time to do something called the lightning round.
Okay, let's
So
do it.
We're going to ask you some questions. You're going to just give me a quick answer.
Okay,
Are you ready?
maybe.
Okay. Top favorite places to eat dinner in Atlanta?
Bones Restaurant, and we haven't rehearsed this, but I can say that. Bones Restaurant, it's a great steakhouse in Buckhead, and there are other great, Blue Ridge Grill is another great place. Canoe Restaurant in Vinings. Those would be my top three.
I've been to Bones, I've been to Canoe.
Yeah,
What's the one that competes with Bones, though? What's the other steakhouse?
Chops. Yeah, that's a great one too.
Yeah.
No shortage of good food in Atlanta.
A recent read book or podcast that you've listened to that you especially enjoyed? Book or podcast?
I'll start with podcasts, and it was a recent one. If you've ever heard the Acquired podcast, it's two guys that go really deep into business stories, and I listened to one on Costco, and it was fantastic. And there's a quick story in there about how the former CEO, it's a great story on private brands, because they talked about, now this is rapid fire, so I'll be quick, but talked about how they confused themselves and their customers by having too many private brands. And they said, we're based in Kirkland, Washington, let's just call everything Kirkland in our private brand. And it worked out pretty well for them. Recent book, I read a lot, which I know you do as well. I'm going to go back to my favorite book that I've ever read. And I reread it recently, and it's the John Grisham book. It's the page turner of the firm.
Oh, great.
It's it's the
great
book that I just couldn't put down. It's probably the first book I read that I really enjoyed as a teenager.
Yep.
And I read it recently, so it's a great book.
If you could measure your life and balance it perfectly, work/relaxing, pleasure, what's the trick to that? Not that anybody can necessarily do it, but what's your vision of a balanced life, if you could pull it off, and maybe you have?
Look, it's interesting in this post-COVID world that we live in. Technology is great. You can work from anywhere. I like working in an office. That's just kind of how we grew up. I always tell people, go on vacation, have fun, spend time with your family, and really, don't tell me when you're going. Just enjoy it. So I think the people that you work with, that we all work with, that are successful, they work hard, but they're enjoying themselves. So I don't know that I have a ratio of work 80%, play 20. Go enjoy your life, enjoy your family. That's important, because if you do that, you're going to be better at the job.
Right.
So we're probably a bit lax on that, but that's important. Family's important. Vacationing, life outside of work is very important.
Beach or mountain vacation guy?
Beach.
That was quick.
Yeah, love the beach. Although I've got to put on a lot of sunscreen when I go to the beach.
And me both.
Yeah, but I like the beach. I grew up going to the Florida coast, and now we go to the Georgia coast, and I love it. It's fun.
Last one. I'm not going to say the one favorite. Top 2 or 3 golf courses you've played anywhere in the world that you've really, really enjoyed and found especially memorable.
I would say Ocean Forest in Sea Island, Georgia is one of my favorite. I can't remember the one that I played in New Jersey, which is so great. It was too hard. So
Pine Valley?
Pine Valley.
Yep.
Let's not call that my favorite, because it's phenomenal. It was just too hard. And there's a special golf course in Atlanta called Peachtree Golf Course that I'm fortunate enough to get to play from time to time. So I'd say Ocean Forest and Peachtree Golf Club.
Fantastic. Chris, great to have you on AMN Drive Time, sponsored by our good friends at Ischen.
Hey, thank you, Bill. We appreciate it.